Okay, guys, you can begin.
Okay. Hi everyone. Good day. Welcome to the final presentation. This is Group 10, Chapter 15, Leading Change. The members of this group is Chris, myself, Kyron, and Marcia. For this presentation, we'll be going through 5 sections: change or perish, leading a major change, leading everyday change, leading for innovation, and implementing change. Now I'll hand you over to Marcia, who'll do the first section.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marissa, and I'm going to be presenting the first 2 points, change or perish. This is my first point. You can go on to the next slide, please. When the rate of change outside exceeds the rate of change inside, what do you think that means? And this is for the class. Anyone can answer. No one answering? Well, according to Jack Welch, the former longtime chairman and CEO of General, emphasized that internal organizational changes must keep pace with what is happening in the external environment. Next slide, please. Subsequently, there are many factors that can have an effect on organizations, having to perpetually changing and adapting to keep up the pace. They are as follows: rapid technological changes, a globalized economy, shifting geopolitical forces, changing markets, the growth of e-business, and swift spread of information via the internet. All of the above presents advantages and disadvantages for organizational leaders. Undoubtedly, within organizations, leaders at some point encounter some degree of resistance when they adapt to implement changes. However, change is necessary if organizations are to survive and thrive. Next slide, please. According to DAFT 2008 outlines, here are some outlines of some key characteristics of leaders who can accomplish successful change projects. Leaders define themselves as change leaders rather than people who want to maintain the status quo. In other words, it's not about the show. It's not about just one person. Leading is equivalent as teamwork. Leaders demonstrate courage. You have to show the initiative and the capability to bring forth your objective and a successful outcome. Leaders believe in employees' capacity to assume responsibilities. Well, with this one, I believe some leaders don't really give the employees opportunity to bring forth their ideas or opinions towards achieving success. And this should be implemented throughout the organization. Leaders recognize and learn from their own mistakes. I'm not seeing the next one. Leaders are capable of managing complexity, uncertainty, and ambiguity. They have a vision and can describe their vision for the future in vivid terms. Next slide, please. Question. This is for the class. Do you think you possess or perform any of these characteristics? Anyone?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Do you think you possess or perform any of these characteristics? Do you show leadership?
we're not seeing any characteristics.
These are the key characteristics that I have outlined. And do you show the initiative? Do you, as they would say, challenge your employer? Do you add to your organization?
Yeah, I do.
And in what way, may I ask?
I would. One of the biggest things that I do basically is I look at systems that are not efficient and formulate ways to make them more efficient in terms of time and productivity. Um, I also challenge superiors when I used to work for people. Um, I motivate. A number of the things that you would have discussed. Yes.
So then generally you do possess leadership's characteristics. Hats off to you. Thank you for your response. Next slide, please. This is Dr. Barbara Waugh. Anyone know of Dr. Barbara Waugh and her accomplishments?
No, not familiar.
Dr. Barbara Waugh, she began at the personal position at an HP lab. Her vision was to make the organization that she worked in the world's best industrial research lab, right? Her initial intent was to activate a lot of people, communicate with them about her vision and what she wants the company to achieve. And by doing this, she encouraged and challenged employees to challenge superiors to gain that kind of achievement. So she, by doing that, she gave the employers a reality check for leaders who, quote, have gotten too far away from their day-to-day work of the organization. You know, some leaders, because they have reached a certain position, they forget about what really, where they come from, where they started. And one thing I like about Dr. Barbara Waugh is that she believed you have to always be willing to lose your job. How do you feel about that in order to achieve your goal? Anyone? How do you feel
I
about losing
mean,
your job?
I feel like it's a risk to stand up to any employer, but um, at this point in time, nah, I don't need to lose my job. Thanks very much.
But I think
I
it's based on
understand.
the environment and the structure of the organization. I mean, you could challenge. There are some open door organizations with flat systems where they allow that. You get a lot of that in Sweden. That's how they operate. So it
You have
is
to give your
embraced.
input. Your
Repeat.
opinion matters.
Yeah, of course. So they allow that. They allow that to they foster that type of environment.
Thank you
But
very
not
much
not
for
not
your
every
response.
organization is like that.
Not every organization, but there are some who foster that in their environment. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Who can tell me who is this gentleman, this lovely gentleman at the left-hand side? Anyone knows this person?
No.
This person is
No.
John Maxwell. He is a well-known influential leader, and his leadership is quite orthodox. He is a great believer in power of influence and teamwork. And he states, and I want you to be clear on this, no leader can ever achieve anything great or large or long lasting all alone. Do you agree with Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
I agree.
I do agree. And what about the lady? Do you know this lady?
That's Melinda Gates.
Can you give me an insight as to any
Um,
of the background?
she is she's the she was no, I think she is the co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Correct. And of her accomplishment, she managed to reach out to the community. That is her way of leadership, reaching out to the community because she believed in communication is the key and helping people thrive. It's not just about you, it's about teamwork. She is a huge champion in ensuring women and girls around the world gets access to education as well as ensuring they eliminate disease and poverty for all. Next slide, please. But I guess everyone knows this lady, Michelle Obama, right? This is,
Yes.
yes, President Obama's wife. Her influence, she's a very charismatic, how do you, charismatic leader, right? Her approach is very different. She is not afraid to argue her point, um, and she is not afraid to oppose those in authority. Michelle Obama connects with those around her and shows charisma, and in return, people believe in her. That's her approach, right? So these are just some example of those people who have been influential and have shown certain characteristics and leadership in the world. Next slide, please. Is change easy? Change does not happen easily, but with influence of good leaders throughout the organization can facilitate change and help the organization adapt to external threats and new opportunities. In fact, one does not need to be a top leader to be a change leader. This is the second point, leading a major change. When leading a major change project, it is important for leaders to recognize that the change process goes through stages. Each stage is important and may require a significant amount of time. Leaders are responsible for guiding employees and the organization through the change process. Next slide, please. Now we would look at the 8 change process stages. The 8 change process stages can be used by leaders to provide a strong foundation for success. And they are as follows. Next slide, please. Stage 1. Leaders establish a sense of urgency that change is really needed. Therefore, leaders carefully examine the internal and external environment, looking at competitive conditions, market positions, social, technological, geographic trends, profit and loss, operations, and other factors to help improve their organization. Stage 2 involves leaders establishing a coalition with enough power to guide the change and then developing a sense of teamwork among the group. For the change process to succeed, there must be a shared commitment to the need and possibilities for organizational transformation. Stage 3. This requires developing a vision and strategy. Leaders are responsible for formulating and articulating a compelling vision that will guide the change effort, then developing the strategies for each vision. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Stage 4. Leaders use every means possible to widely communicate the vision and strategy. For example, leaders must act as an example by modeling the new behavior. They must act as an example by modeling the new behavior needed for employees, which means they themselves must behave a certain way. Also, they must kind of, how to put it, communicate at least to the workers, at least often as necessary, and in return, allow feedback on their opinion. Stage 5. This involves empowering employees throughout the organization to act on that vision. This means getting rid of obstacles to change, which may require revising systems, structures, or procedures that hinder or undermine the change effort. Stage 6, leaders generate short-term wins. Leaders plan for visible performance improvements, enable them to happen, and celebrate employees who are involved in these improvements. So you acknowledge your employees to give them the don't want to say strength, but to give them show interest in them so they will put their best foot forward. Next slide, please. Leaders keep up the urgency, that is building on the credibility and momentum achieved by short-term visions or wins to tackle bigger problems. Stage 8, leaders make the change stick. The transformation isn't over until change have well been established. Leaders instill new values, attitudes, and behaviors so that employees view the change not as something new, but as a normal and integral part of how the organization operates. Next slide, please. And now I hand you over to my colleague, Chris. Take the show.
Hi, my name is Chris, and I'll be doing everyday change and leading for innovation. Alright, so sometimes big changes in management and leadership can cause negative feedback. However, Implementing small changes and influences daily can have a greater positive effect. Alright, so how would you say this by a good example of this is like video games. If you remember like a big change in a game, like I had this is a probably experience I had because when I was playing this game, they made a big change to the movements and stuff, and like it was basically unplayable, so it was so different that you legit couldn't play shit. I mean, sorry, you legit couldn't play the game anymore. So that's why game developers now is into like small minor increments to lead up so I see in the market if people like it or not. So yeah, that basically there is this point whole level. So and basically some of these small positive strategies include creative self-expression and right words, which I'll elaborate in other slides. All right, go on the next slide. Great. You go on to the next slide. All right. So the first one is creative self-expression. This strategy involves the leader exhibiting certain traits and values that they would like to see imprinted into the working environment to employees. So basically, what comes to my mind is monkey see, monkey do. So, I mean, a good example of this is when he was young, and a parents teach you to do the right thing. So, you used to get beat, so you give yourself a good image in public and things. So, yeah, that should be a pretty good example of this. Or I find that a pretty good example. Yes, no. All right, Jesus. All right, go on to the next slide. All right, right words taking negative attitudes and behaviors and turn them into opportunities for correction. Example, race issues, POC staff, people, all right, for people who know POC, people of color staff are not being taken seriously compared to non-POC staff. So basically, what could be a good example of this play? Well, well, hmm, when I was learning to drift and thing, basically the car is sliding off the road, so you can't really, apparently can't really beat your ass with it, so let's just see this way. You can you can't really make it out of a bad opportunity because if you take a bad opportunity and make it a good example, you can learn from it instead of like scaring people from revisiting the issue and that kind of thing. Yeah, that should be a good example. Or do you agree with it?
Maybe you could explain it one more time.
All right, so if you let's just put this in like simple form, right? All right, if you're at school somewhere or some, if it's school somewhere for something and they wouldn't like to revisit it, compared to like if you take constructive criticism and they try to fix the issues, and they will most likely will agree to it and come back to the issue. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like pretty much it. Agreed.
Okay, cool.
Right. Go on to the next slide. Competitions. Wait, yeah, go on to the next slide. All right, this one I put the example right in the header. So, right opportunities using scenarios to motivate other changes. Example: you do not like the current English department HOD management style, so you start introducing and commanding your department by sharing authority and responsibilities. Therefore, in turn, all members in the department gain experience and management skills. And basically a little meme below. Try to tired of waiting for the right opportunity. Come join us. We are hiring. Any comments?
None so far.
That was a question. Forgive me.
No, that was I put the example right inside the heading. So instead of like, you know.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Right, so go on the next slide. Alliance building. Working with others to tackle issues and solve them more effectively and efficiently. The leader uses everyone's strengths, including those who disagree, to their to their plans and tackle issues. Alliance done. So what do you think? You think it's good to have well having a team tackle an issue, or I think well it depends on what kind of person is. So it good you think yourself as a person that you rather do something by yourself or you rather have people like emotional support and they could do it together. I mean a good example is like group work in Costa. Yeah, that's pretty much yeah. I guess you could see that. So what kind of person are you? What do you guys consider yourself? An individual person or a group person?
I think it depends on the situation, but most
Like,
times it's better to do things in do things with the support of other people, I think.
I see. Alright. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Oh. All right, on to the next slide. All right, so there's a question for the fellows. What would be a good strategy that Ole will personally use? Me personally, I like the money strategy, more bread making. Anybody else? Nobody?
Is it a strategy for alliance you're talking about? What strategy?
What strategy? Yeah, I'm lost.
Like a strategy to like motivate your employees. Say like you as an employer, right? And you have to motivate the employees. What kind of strategy you would use?
Oh, I think I would try to lead by example in terms of like if you want employees to work late or to stay late and work on a project, you would try to show them that you staying back and working and you come actually coming to help instead of just telling them that you want this done by 4 o'clock and you leaving 2 o'clock to go home. You would
Mm-hmm.
stay and try to give that motivation.
Yeah, that's solid points. Anybody else?
For me, it will be monetization, which isn't usually the first thing. Um, you set deliverables and based on deliverables is monetized. So that's what I would do.
All right. Okay. Not bad. All right, on to the next slide. All right, now next part is leading for innovation. Innovation is a very important factor in keeping businesses relevant and unique. In this current century, it can also be used as an indicator of success for a business. Many businesses need innovation to gain an advantage over other businesses. All right, so a good example of this is Skype. I remember Skype was like the biggest thing out, and then like when Microsoft buy it, Microsoft was like so they think those already ahead in the market, so they're just trying to like bedazzle everything to make everything look fancy and thing. But at the end of the day, they wasn't keeping up with innovation and it fall behind. I remember that. Oh, well, probably, probably not. All right. Innovation has become so important for a business success to the point where companies do not put all their focus into cutting costs and improving overall efficiency. Rather they put more emphasis on inspiration and creativity. So basically, that's mostly for the employees, I guess. Uh, to, enf- to enforce this, leaders create an environment that fosters creativity. As I said, the more creative, the better. And, right. Next slide. We go on the next slide. Scratch his neck. Wait, Mohammed Evers? Creativity in the business context are ideas that can implement the work process. Creativity in business context are ideas that can be used to improve the overall efficiency of the business. Creativity is not a direct answer to the problem. However, this is a process that answers opportunities and specific needs. So if you think about it, if creativity was a set of steps, right? Like say it was a math equation, you think everybody answer would be the same? Hello?
No, I
You
don't
sure?
think
You
so.
don't think so? Like
No.
like a math equation, right? You have a set of specific steps to follow, right? If you follow them steps and you get into that end goal, well, the answer.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So, how, how can leaders create this creative organization? There are 5 elements used by innovative organizations. These 5 elements include alignment, creative values, unofficial activities, diverse stimuli, and within company communication. And I will elaborate on them points in the slides going. All right, alignment. All the all the organization members need to be aligned with the scope, goals, and purpose of the organization before contributing creative acts and ideas. To aid this goal, to aid this, good leaders consistently promote the company's vision and goals. Organizations often create a separate department for creativity, also known as an idea incubator, where ideas can share freely and can face external influences. All right. So, from my understanding from this, I guess it's like Windows updates. Like you keep showing it over and over and over again until like you get to the until they finally update the computer. So I guess this is my understanding of this. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You could go on to the next slide. Creative values. Leaders can introduce systems and values to create an outlet for members to express their creativity and new ideas. This is also known as corporate entrepreneurship. Out of this idea, champions can be born. There are people who are passionate about their ideas and convince others on why their ideas are the best. So if you think about it, and creativity is the best way. And a good name, like showing that is the name below. You don't find so?
Um,
Oh,
yeah, I think so.
anybody else objects? Guess not. All right. What the next slide? All right. So, characters of an innovative organization. Unofficial activity allowing employees to experiment and be creative without being under strict management and supervision. Employees should be able to experiment on projects and ideas even if it doesn't fit into the company's scope and the mission statement. Well, main mission. So, if you think about it, right? And smartphone, everything come out of creativity. So, I highly, most likely, what do you say this way? If you think about it, loan employees, strict management. And when you're doing stuff like, if you sit down and you work, right? Stuff do come to mind. But when you sit down on your own time and it come to mind, and just be more creatively and like your own time and stuff. Like ideas come to your mind.
Yeah, I suppose you could be more creative when you're in your own personal space and more comfortable.
Yeah. That's basically unofficial activity. And another one is diverse stimuli. Not everyone can trigger creativity The same way, leaders should provide employees with different activities to stimulate their creativity. For example, switching roles in departments, create social groups within members from all hierarchies from the business, even allow employees to interact outside of the industry and with customers and suppliers can spark creativity. Right. Anybody? So yeah, this is a good example of this out of the box thinking. Someone ordered a cat. So basically, when you're on your own time and own terms, basically all the thoughts come to your mind. That is that this is basically what my thought process was with this meme. Right, keep going to the next one. Characteristics of an innovative organization. Internal communication. Communication is key in every scenario. It helps to avoid confusion and conflict. In the context of an innovative organization, internal communication is needed for implementation of ideas. With proper internal communication saves time and money by resolving conflicts and issues in development via communication. I mean, and there's pretty self-explanatory. Communication is key because if you have miscommunication, I think and stuff will go very wrong, like real wrong. Especially if your organization like very big, like big firms and thing. Yes. Right. So, and well, there's a good lead. Work on communication. THX. Thanks. Right. Any questions? Any comments? Anyway, is it going
Okay.
on?
Hi
Right.
everyone.
Going on.
I will go into the last chapter, implementing change. Leaders leaders frequently see innovation, change, and creativity as a way to strengthen the organization, but many people view change as a painful and destructive. A critical aspect of leading people through change is understanding that resistance to change is natural and that there are often legitimate reasons for it. In this chapter, we are going to take a look at how change is implemented in an organization and how employees may resist change. We are also going to look at leadership and how it relates to change, the two sides of change, and how change may lead to downsizing in the workplace. The underlying reasons why employees resist change is that it violates the personal compact between workers and the organization. Now you may be asking yourself that what exactly is personal compact? Personal compact are mutual obligations and commitments that define the relationship between employees and organizations. They include such things as job tasks, performance requirements, evaluation procedures, and compensation packages. These aspects of the compact packages are generally clearly defined and may be in written form as part of the employee contract. The personal compact incorporates elements such as mutual trust and dependence, as well as shared values. When employees become aware that these new changes violate the personal compact, they are likely to resist. Now I'm going to play you a video that talks more about implementing change.
Change is a big deal in organizations today. It isn't just technology, it isn't just business process, It's all about change. Change is all around us. Um, what I've seen be successful is to really, as an organization, have a change mentality, much like a continuous improvement mentality you might have in a manufacturing or a process-based team.
People are not predisposed to embrace change, especially when you're dealing with sometimes an organization that has pride of ownership of what they've built, their current solution. Oftentimes you are replacing someone's life's work when you're doing these large transformation projects. So the first thing you have to, I believe, is articulate the actual need for change to be embedded in the program from the beginning and not just a single event.
Many of my clients are starting to see change as a competency that they need ongoing. It's part of their leadership tenets, and their leaders are actually measured and they are incented on their ability to help manage change and be the champion for change within their specific parts of the business. In others, we've gone as far as to see centers of excellence around change, where there are change specialists that sponsor change networks 24/7.
Having leaders within the organization understand what change means, how change is going to be used as a program and a model for the particular project that we're doing is very important. And they need to understand their role in that change, which means being a voice, being a change agent within their organization, and understanding what their role is and how they can be successful in their role.
To own the change and migrate that change from a change team to the business, it can't be just focused on the project team itself, but it needs to be part of the DNA and part of the culture of the organization. So I would encourage to have this in place, not just for your projects, but have it be part of your monthly or quarterly aspects of each of your functional organizations. And there's so much change in the world happening, and only those organizations that adopt that and understand it and make it part of their DNA, those are the organizations that are going to be at the top of their field and maintain or gain the market share that they're after.
Okay, so in this video, we saw that how change is one of the most important things that needs to happen and that has to happen in an organization. From change, we are able to develop new ideas. We are able to come out of situations that may be bad for the company, or situations that may be good and come out from a good, that may turn into a good outcome. I have a question for you all. Can you remember a time where a major change happened in your workplace and how you dealt with that change? Anyone?
All
All
right.
right.
I can go with my company. We were at a bypass where we were not making money. We were burning. Our burn rate a month was very high, and my business partner, he wanted to quit, and we had to decide whether to stop and give up or um, look for another go-to-market strategy and just redo a lot of our strategic decisions. I mean implementation, sorry. And it was tough. It was a tough decision because it was 3 years, into a business and you're still not making the money that you wanted to do. And it paid off. It was hard. We had to let go some people. We downsized, but it paid off in the end. And now the company has hired more than 10x the initial staff that it had. So it takes us, sometimes it takes guts when you have to pivot and make certain key changes that is necessary.
That is, thank you, Karim. That's actually a really good example. Another example we could take a look at is the current situation in the world right now with the pandemic, right? That change in that happened in our everyday life. That drastically affected us in every way possible we could think about, right? A major way it affected us is in our workplace. A lot of people may have lost their jobs. A lot of people may have had to switch careers. A lot of people may have had to go back to school to find something that they could do. And a lot of people had to be work from home. So this is how change affects us in our daily setting and in our work environment. Hold on. Right. So this next video, we're going to be talking about tools to implement change. In the video below, we are going to see the different reasons why employees would resist change and how they overcome the change.
A new creative idea will not benefit the organization until it's in place and being used. Managers are often frustrated because employees may seem to resist change for no apparent reason. To effectively implement change, it's important to be aware of the reasons people resist change and to use techniques that can help overcome resistance and enlist employee buy-in. Before we get started, we need to define the term change. For the purposes of this course, change is all about a transformation or modification. And resistance to change is one explanation for why implementing change is so difficult. People resist change for several reasons, and understanding these reasons is a good start towards knowing how to bring about needed change in organizations. People typically resist change because they believe it conflicts with their self interests. A proposed change in job design, structure, or technology may increase employees' workload, for example, or cause a real or perceived loss of power, prestige, pay, or benefits. The fear of personal loss is perhaps the biggest obstacle to organizational change. Many people will do whatever they can do to avoid that loss. Employees also often distrust the intentions behind a change or do not understand the intended purpose of the change. If previous working relationships with a manager or promoter of an idea have been negative, resistance may occur. Uncertainty is a lack of information about future events. It represents a fear of the unknown. It is especially threatening for employees who have a low tolerance for change and fear anything out of the ordinary. They do not know how a change will affect them, and they worry about whether they'll be able to meet the demands of a new procedure or technology. Another reason for resistance to change is that people who will be affected by the change or innovation may assess the situation differently from managers or promoters of the new idea. Critics frequently voice legitimate disagreements over the proposed benefits of a change. Managers in each department pursue different goals, and an innovation may detract from performance and goal achievement for some departments. These reasons for resistance are legitimate in the eyes of employees affected by the change. Managers should not ignore resistance. Instead, they should diagnose the reasons and design strategies to gain acceptance by users. Strategies for overcoming resistance and implementing change typically involve three approaches. One, making people aware of the need for the change by creating a sense of urgency. Two, analyzing resistance through the force field technique. And three, using selective implementation tactics. Let's take a look. Many people are not willing to change unless they perceive a problem or crisis. A crisis or strong need for change lowers resistance. To effectively lead change, managers help people feel the need for change rather than just giving them facts or figures. Managers should remember that implementing change requires speaking to people's hearts as well as to their heads. Moving on, a force field analysis is a technique for determining which forces drive a proposed change and which forces restrain it. When a change is introduced, managers should analyze both the forces that drive the change, problems and opportunities, and the forces that resist it, barriers to change. By selectively removing forces that restrain change, the driving forces will be strong enough to enable implementation. As barriers are reduced or removed, behavior will shift to incorporate the desired changes. Another approach to implementing change is to use specific tactics to overcome resistance and more smoothly put changes into action. Researchers have studied various methods for dealing with resistance to change. The following are 5 implementation tactics. First, top management support. Next, communication and education, followed by participation, negotiation, and coercion. Let's take a look at each. One survey found that 80% of companies that are successful innovators have top executives who frequently reinforce the importance of innovation, both verbally and symbolically. The visible support of top management makes people aware of the importance of a change and gives the change legitimacy. Without top management support, changes can get bogged down in squabbling among departments or contradictory orders from lower level managers. Communication and education are used when solid information about the changes needed by users and others who may resist implementation. Participation involves the potential resistors in designing change. This approach is time consuming, but pays off because users understand and become committed to the change. Participation helps managers determine potential problems and understand the differences in perspectives of change among employees. Negotiation is a more formal means of achieving cooperation. Negotiation uses formal bargaining to win acceptance and approval of a desired change. Finally, coercion means that managers use their formal power to force employees to change. Resistors are told to accept the change or lose rewards, or even their jobs. Many people prefer the status quo and tend to resist change. The biggest obstacle to organizational change is the fear of personal loss. Other reasons why people resist change are a lack of understanding and trust, uncertainty, and different assessments and goals.
Okay, so I have a question for you all. After we've went through this video and saw the reasons how to implement change and how it is done in any management system, would you say that you are one that is hesitant to change? Kramer, I'll give you that question.
Um, I would not say I'm hesitant to change because I'm always open. I'm an open-minded person when it comes to business, because I don't know everything. And I mean, at the end of the day, if it's stress test enough and the idea is solid, I don't see why not, But there must be a considerable amount of research and just just validating whatever we want to do. It has to be validated. It has to be stress test, and if it passes, then yeah, I'm up for it.
Oh, good. You see, that's another good example of how you were able to overcome the different aspects of change and how, because if we don't overcome, we can find ourselves end up in a bad situation where we may have to downsize, we may lose our jobs, we may lose opportunities. So change is very important.
Well, a good example of that is Kodak,
Yeah,
and Nokia. They didn't change.
exactly.
They
Also,
have
BlackBerry.
exactly.
BlackBerry is a huge example because now, if they, because they didn't evolve and change with the times, they are currently no longer. We could basically say nothing in existence. We haven't seen a BlackBerry phone or anything from BlackBerry in a very long while. And the
They
moment
are,
they
but the
tried,
business model has changed.
yeah,
They
yeah,
are.
it did. Right. And the thing about it is that the moment that they try to compete and change to the current norm in technology and in cell phones and stuff like that, they fell fell flat badly. They recently, not recently, a couple years ago, they released a BlackBerry phone, and the market was not taken to it at all. every part of the phone, every part of the experience of the phone fell short of what other phones had. And this is because they felt they wasn't able to keep up with the change. They wasn't able to connect with anyone, connect with their customers properly. And this is a very important thing. What we need to remember is that effective leaders use elements such as storytelling, metaphor, humor, symbolism, and a personal touch to reach people on an emotional level and sell them on proposed changes. Emotional elements are essential for persuading and influencing others. Thus, leaders should not overlook the importance of emotional elements in overcoming resistance to change. Now we're going to look at the two sides of change. Effectively and humanely, leading change is one of the greatest challenges for leaders. The nature and pace of change in today's environment can be exhilarating and even fun, but it can also be inconvenient, painful, and downright scary. Even when a change appears to be good for an individual, for individual employees as well as an organization, it can lead to decreased morale, lower commitment, and diminished trust if not handled carefully. In addition, some changes that may be necessary for the good of the organization can cause real negative consequences for individual employees who may experience high levels of stress, be compelled to quickly learn entirely new tasks and ways of working, or possibly lose their jobs. Some of the most difficult changes are those related to structure, such as redefining positions and responsibilities, re-engineering the company, redesigning job departments or divisions, or downsizing the organization. A good example of this right now is the current situation with Massey. Massey was one of the biggest companies in the Caribbean, probably even globally, right? And right now we are seeing, I don't know if you all know this, but we are seeing a lot of changes within the organization itself in terms of their selling off parts of the company. For whatever reason they are doing this, I'm not sure as to why they are doing this. Maybe it's because due to different competitors coming up or situations within the organization itself, but they themselves are going through a massive change, and people are losing their jobs because now we have a situation where other companies are buying out different aspects of different aspects of Massey. So we have Massey Technologies, who is currently now owned by a company in Jamaica. Massey Insurance is now owned by another company in Jamaica, I believe. The only remaining companies that Massey itself owns is Massey Motors, the grocery, and another company I'm not too sure about right now. In in many cases, these types of changes mean that some people will be seriously hurt because that they will lose their jobs. Numerous organizations have experienced widespread layoffs in recent years, especially with the major pandemic we are currently still experiencing. Change in the workplace has become more frequent. As I mentioned before, we have seen downsizing happen because of change. Downsizing refers to initially reducing the size of a company's workforce. During the boom years of the 1990s, few leaders had to be concerned with the need for laying off employees. But the economy downturn of the early 2000s made a massive downsizing a common practice in American corporations. In addition, downsizing is a part of major change initiatives in today's organizations. There are times when downsizing is a necessary part of a thoughtful restructure of assets or other important change initiatives. When job cuts are necessary, leaders should be prepared for increased conflict and stress, even greater resistance to change, and a decrease in morale, trust, and employee commitment. A number of techniques can help leaders smooth the downsizing process, ease tensions for employees who leave, as well as those who remain. Now we're going to look at how leaders should properly manage downsizing.
As a business leader, if you find yourself in the unfortunate circumstance of having to conduct a mass layoff, there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things, like almost anything in life. So we'll touch on a few of the right ways to go about this mass layoff. Although it won't be pleasant, if you do things in the proper way, it should be the least uncomfortable experience for everyone. So the first thing that you want to do is you need to get everyone in the company together, and you need to explain to them what is happening and why it's happening. Most importantly, why it is happening. It's not a byproduct of one department or one team or an individual's poor performance. It is a byproduct of the company as a whole failing to meet their financial goals. To go one step further, it's more than likely a byproduct of some poor leadership. Otherwise, the financial goals more than likely could have and would have been met. So as a business leader, it also is time for you as the leader of the company to own what's happening, to acknowledge what's happening, and to make sure that everyone understands is not the people being affected by the layoff are not the only ones who perform poorly or something like that, but on a whole, the company did not hit its financial targets. Another thing you want to do is to train management to conduct the layoffs themselves, right? So it's not HR's job to do the dirty work, to clean up the mess, as some might say. People on a day-to-day basis interact with their direct manager and their team, and so that is who they should hear the news from. That's where the conversation should happen. You might want to involve HR with some of the administrative tasks and whatnot, but it's not something you just dump on the human resources department and go about business as usual. The other thing you want to make sure to do in the same vein is to have all of the details regarding severance pay, the continuation of health benefits, retirement benefits, anything like that, employee assistance and outplacement services. All those details should be ironed out and be able to be distributed in one, informational packet. This isn't the time to say you'll get back to someone with details about severance pay or whatnot. This is a life-altering decision that you probably have to make that affects this employee and their family, and so all that stuff should be ironed out up front. We really want to remember in this unfortunate scenario that employees aren't going to remember the day they were hired at your company, but they most certainly are going to remember this day. They're going to most certainly remember the day that they were part of a mass layoff, and that goes for both the people affected by the layoff and the people who were not affected by the layoff. As they see their colleagues packing up belongings and whatnot, they'll remember how those people were treated. And so if you do things the right way, it can be an experience for everyone. Although it's not going to be a comfortable one or an enjoyable one, you can get past it and move the business back towards achieving the objectives and hitting those financial targets.
Okay, so we've seen the different techniques that one can apply to smoothen the process of downsizing. And we have to understand that downsizing in our organization is not always something personal. It is not an attack on the employees, right? And employees need to remember that companies itself go through processes where changes happen. And sometimes it may be for the bad or for the good, but sometimes downsizing may be important and needed for the company to grow. I have a question for you all, one final question. Have you ever been in a situation where you were laid off or know someone that was laid off?
No.
Yeah, I had to do some laying off already.
Kareem, when in that situation, how did your employees take that laying off, that downsizing?
Huh. It was very emotional. Um, one of the hardest things is that you bring them on early, like in an early stage organization, they feel they become part of it, in terms of most of the decision making, because it's a small operation. And with my case, we weren't making any money in the first 3 years. It was a hard decision, but they understood, and at the end of the day is the goal as a business owner is the survival of the organization. That is what matters most, because if the business doesn't survive, nobody has a job. And but it was tricky, it was tough, but at the end, thank God that they were able, and they were very understanding as to where we were at in our journey.
Great. And that is one thing that we need to remember. When building an organization, these employees, according to the type of organization you build, these employees become like family, because sometimes they're there from the beginning to the end, and they would put in the work, blood, and sweat for the company. As I said, in some organizations, right, according to the type of organization you built, these kind of things happen. And when we are faced with situation where downsizing needs to happen, it tends to weigh a lot on the person, on the employees and the employer, right? But we need to remember that these things happen in everyday situation, everyday life, in organizations, and need to not take it personally. It's just a part of change, right? One thing that we can also do to smoothen this process of downsizing is implementing things to help employees in the end. So having several packages in place, offering training that could help them find a new job due to the downsizing of your company. These little things can help employees that are facing downsizing feel a little bit better, knowing that yes, this is happening to them, but the company still has them in mind and still trying to make sure that they are okay in the end. These techniques show remaining workers that leaders care about people, which can help to ease their own feelings of confusion, guilt, anger, and sadness over the loss of colleagues. So, you have heard from myself and my fellow group members with regards to the chapter on leading change. At this time, I would like to open the floor to any questions you may have. And if not, this is the end of our presentation.
Okay, if there are no questions, I'll stop the recording. Thank you very much, guys.
No problem.